Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Good morning if you're on the West Coast. If you are looking for a place to learn about jobs in infrastructure, you are at the right place. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jane Oates and I'm going to moderate. But before I do any kind of moderation, I'm going to pass off to Chris Keaveney, who's the CEO of Meritize, and who is also really such a thought leader in the space of making training affordable and accessible for everybody, particularly in these blue collar areas. Chris, can I pass off to you for an introduction?
Thanks, Jane. Really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say a few words before we got started. First to thank everyone for taking the time, for being a part of such an important conversation, especially our panelists, which I'm sure we'll introduce them here in just a minute. But I can't say enough how grateful and impressed we are to have such an incredible panel, people who know so much about this space, who are willing to take the time to help us promote this conversation. We'll touch on these topics as we go through, but from where we sit here at Meritize, we think that the conversation around how we create the talent that helps us, in many respects, rebuild our nation's infrastructure is an absolutely critical one, and it's one we're passionate about. Our country, we need skilled labor, right? I mean, there are lots of ways you can think about this, lots of ways that you can spin it, but at the end of the day, everything from welders to mechanics to linemen to nurses to medical technicians, cybersecurity analysts, IT programmers, IT infrastructure analysts, commercial pilots. Like, we could go on and on and on about the skills that are needed for us to continue to grow the economy the way we want to. And without being kind of mindful about the need to encourage people to go get these skills, we're not going to get the growth, the continued growth in our economy that we want and need. Unfortunately, I think there are some challenges to that, and perhaps this will create some fodder for conversation as we move along. But I did want to bring up just a couple of thoughts that we have around what those challenges are, because we think they pose interesting questions. First is, we firmly believe the pace of technology, the pace at which technology progresses today, and it's across pretty much every one of those skill groups that I mentioned. It requires us to think about training and education more as a continuous process than some discrete event, right? So, people entering the workforce today, I don't know how many times they'll probably need to relearn skills or update skills over the course of time. And if we don't agree to think of it that way, we're putting ourselves behind the eight ball. Two, we firmly believe that regardless of what it is you're doing, traditional, non-traditional, skills-based, kind of the four-year college path, we need to think about training and education from an ROI perspective. And third, we need to continue on what I've seen as recent progress in presenting skills-based career options to our youth. And it needs to be presented at an early age as an alternative to some of the more, traditional paths. And lastly, we need employers to continue to make progress and the way in participating in the training and development of the skills and talent we need. And the way we think about it is that, and the way we talk to people about it is that employers need to become talent creators rather than talent consumers. And so, we think that those are the key points, or some of the key points in this conversation. Just very quickly, we started Meritize 5 years ago to promote awareness, access, and advancement within the skills-based space. And, we work really hard every day to try to help people, understand what options are out there, get access to those options. And then once they've been trained to take the next step in their careers and livelihood. And the thing that I think we've been blown away by on our journey is the number and the quality of people who share that mission. some of them are here today, and frankly, everyone attending this is probably to some degree, shares those views as well. We think that there's been a lot of progress, and we think that if we continue to put our nose to the grindstone, we'll make a lot more progress and do some great things over the next short period of time. That's going to help us continue to rebuild parts of our country that definitely need it. So with that, I thanks again for everybody for taking the time. Thanks to our panelists. Thanks to the incomparable Jane Oates. I will attend anything that you ever moderate or host, even if I'm not wanted. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Chris, you never have to worry about that. You're always wanted. But, I just say to everybody that's with us today, if you don't know Meritize, get to know them. They're making a difference for so many people who want to either begin their career in these blue collar areas or change their career into them and can't use Pell or Title IV, can't get a loan that's reasonable. They really are making it a reality. So take a look at them. Chris and I like each other, not because of just personal things, but I just so admire the work that you're doing, and I've been really pretty vocal about it. So thank you, Chris. And thanks to Whiteboard. The two of you coming up with this idea, I think, is really great. And the panel you put together is world class. So all of you are in for a treat. Again, very simply put, I'm Jane Oates. I'm the president of Working Nation. We tell stories about the transition back and forth between work and education. And because of that, I get to meet a lot of very interesting people. And today's discussion is particularly interesting because in November, something earth-shattering happened. There was a bipartisan effort in the US Congress. $1.2 trillion went to infrastructure funding. And basically, it's a drop in the bucket about what's needed. As Chris said, it's money for roads, it's money for airports and trains and buses and intermodal centers. It's money for water infrastructure and the utility companies and everything in between. If you think infrastructure, to me, infrastructure is anything that gets you to work or gets you the things you need to get work happening. And, at the same time we're hearing about that historic money investment, we've been plagued by supply chain issues. So we're going to tackle these issues today with your help. I hope all of you that are with us today, put your questions in chat. They're always going to be better than my questions because they're more relevant. They're going to answer a need that you have. And as I said, aside from Chris, we have amazing people with us today. I'm going to briefly introduce them and then ask them to introduce themselves. First, we have Tameshia Bridges Mansfield, who's with JFF. If you don't know JFF, you've been hiding under a rock. They're the amazing connection, giving technical assistance and advice and great thought leadership when it comes to everything education and work. Thrilled to have you here. Then we have Sylvester Gustino, who you may not know, but you should know. He is with the commercial truck, I'm going to screw it up, Sylvester, I'm sorry. The Commercial Vehicle Training Association. You know what that means? That means the people helping fill the 80,000 vacancies in truck driving today. We can't eat or live without getting things trucked to us, no matter where you live in the United States. So he's an important person to have. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have Ron Stockman, who's with the Advanced Welding School in Louisiana. So you can see I didn't exaggerate. We have real experts in this. Get your questions going. And Tameshia, I'm going to go to you and give yourself a broader introduction and certainly an introduction about JFF as well.
No, thank you so much, Jane, and I'm really happy to be here. And hello to everybody who is here and joining us in the conversation today. So as Jane said, I am Vice President for Workforce Innovation at JFF. I've been here for about 9 months, and I've worked in the workforce field in a variety of ways, initially starting working on behalf of direct care workers, which is another really vital, like from the human infrastructure side, but really looking at what does it take to both provide provide a quality job for those workers and also provide training pathways. So I've always looked at both sides, right, in terms of both attracting workers, keeping workers, and advancing workers. And what does that mean? Prior to being at JFF, I was also at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and did grant making there in the space of workforce development. But at JFF, what I'm really excited about being here is for folks who may not know JFF, we are an almost 40-year organization that really works and sees ourselves as a catalyst for change by really accelerating innovation with really an eye towards imagining what the future of work and learning looks like. Because we know that right now, a lot of the solutions that are out there are working, but they're not working for everybody. And we really have a firm mission as it relates to economic advancement for all. And so as we've been thinking about what does it mean for infrastructure, I think we've been really excited and celebrating, right, the passage of the infrastructure bill, but also recognize that while we're celebrating, we also have to continue to push and ask for more dollars in training and also career navigation, right? Because people need to both understand this huge network that is out there of training opportunities and job opportunities. And we really think that people need an easier way to understand the offerings that are out there so that they can see themselves in the work, right? And also know where they can go to get skills. So that's a little bit around how we are thinking about the importance of infrastructure jobs, but I'll pause here and pivot and have other folks introduce themselves so that then we can get into more of a conversation.
Perfect, thank you. Sil, after I completely butchered your association, are you still willing to talk to me?
Of course, Jane, of course. And thank you, Jane, and thank you, Chris, and our good friends at Meritize and our friends at Whiteboard. And to all of you, thank you for joining us today. I'm Sylvester Justino. I'm the Vice President of Federal and State Government Affairs for the Commercial Vehicle Training Association. Our members train and empower future truck and bus drivers. And as a legacy, my father is a truck driver. My grandfather was a truck driver. It's an honor to represent this sector of the trucking industry. You know, my background is in labor and construction and transportation, various different roles between here in New York and New Jersey and Washington. But what my members do, like I said, we really have a golden moment here to educate policymakers, but also people who are looking to change jobs, that there is an industry out there called the commercial vehicle driving industry. And it's not just a license to drive, it opens up doors for other opportunities in the future. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you on this important issue. And I'll turn it over back to you, Jane. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Sil. Ron?
Yeah, thank you. And good morning from Louisiana. It's a pleasure to be here involved in this discussion with everyone. It's a topic that, you know, we all can be a part of, because it's one way or another, it's going to touch each and every one of us and very important to our country. But I'm Vice President of Business Development here at Advanced Welding School. We've been in operation for about 4 years now. The whole idea of our program came about from the owner, Richard Hope. You know, he was a welder in his early days and worked at a large company here in Baton Rouge for part of that duration. And being a welder, it supported his family very well through the years, was a very nice career for him. He knew all the ups and downs, advantages and everything that came along with that, and you know, saw an important way that he could become involved to change people's lives, and that was through the training and development of teaching people the welding craft. So very glad to be a part of this. I'm involved in consultations and job placement primarily here at the school. So I speak with a lot of people that, you know, come in interested in the program, interested in the field, and, you know, try to help discuss where they're going, what their goals are, why welding might be the right fit for them. And then at the end of everything, I also meet with them. And, you know, most importantly, we try to link a very good paying career job for them. And therefore changing their lives. So I love what I do and glad to be involved in this. You know, all of the trades, including welding, I mean, you know, they really need to be looked at again with a lot more respect and notice paid to them, that they are a great option for a lot of people and a great path to a rewarding career.
Well, we're thrilled to have you as a part of this conversation. So let's get started. Tameshia, I'm going to go back to you because you said something, and I'm going to bring this up to everybody, talking about bringing the word quality to jobs. What's a good job? So do you want to put some parameters around that? What do you think makes a job a quality job or a good job? Up, you're on mute. See what you get for being considerate?
I know. I told myself I told myself I wasn't going to do that, and then it happened. But I think that's actually like a really important question. I think when we're in these conversations about how do we get people into jobs, we start at skills and don't advance the conversation to the other side, right? And I think we have to have this balanced conversation around good jobs and skills. And so when I think about like, what does it mean to have a good job in today's economy? I think it's the same thing that a good job was, you know, pre-COVID. And so I think that means a good job is one that provides a living wage, paid leave, predictability. I think it's also about the culture, and working in a culture that really values and respects workers and their voices, their skills, and their perspectives. I also think that it's a job in an environment that embraces equity and inclusion. I don't think we can leave that aside or set that aside. And I also think a good job is one that really provides investments and pathways for people to see greater opportunities, either on that specific career path or within that company or organization. And so I think it's holistic. I think we often start with wages, which I think is a very important starting point, but I don't think that that is the only part or the only component of a good job. And I think we have to look at it far more holistically than we do right now. And if we really want to not just attract people, but keep them and advance them in careers and opportunities.
Such an important point. So Sil and Ron, I'm going to ask you to weigh in here. Is commercial truck driving, you know, or commercial driving, bus and truck, is that a quality job? And Ron, I'll come then to you and say, is welding a quality job under Tameshia's parameters? Sil?
Great question, and very good points. One thing that our members do is when they encounter somebody it could be anybody. It could be a 18 to 20-year-old person who's coming out of college or coming out of high school. That's why we're so happy to see this 18 to 20-year-old pilot program part of this infrastructure bill that would allow young people to enter into the commercial driving industry. But the one thing that our members have told us, and in my interaction with their students, is that the paradigm has shifted. It's not just a job that pays well, but it's work that is dignified. It's work that is steady. The wages now, I mean, the average wage of a starting truck driver is $60,000 a year. And that's just the start. I mean, and if you want to do, you know, we try to open up doors for people who go, okay, you can start out as a truck driver, but you know what, in a year or two, you can become a district manager, or you become a logistics expert. You learn these important skills that can advance your career. So my members take that conversation very seriously. They particularly love to attract quote unquote non-traditional people into our industry. Women, I hear from my members, women are the best students because they are focused on safety. They're better drivers than men most times. They're focused on doing a quality job. That is great to see that, and we love to attract people into this industry for those who maybe didn't start life out too well. Maybe they're coming out of our prison system. They're looking for a new fresh start. Well, you know what, the commercial driving industry is open, and looking forward to working with these people and these folks, and my members work with them, not just through their training, but through their job placement and through their career. to make sure that they can provide a good living for themselves and for their families. So we are seeing that, and it's very encouraging to see. And I'll turn it back to you, Jane.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that you're into diversity. And I love the fact that you're willing to look at people who had a blip in their, their employment history because of maybe an incident that
Everybody
got them
deserves a
arrested.
second chance.
Yeah, second chance programs, really good to hear that. Ron, what about you? How would you sell welding as a real quality job?
Right. Well, basically, it is such a in-demand occupation right now that it's something that everybody should consider as an option if they are remotely interested in this type of field. That demand is going to continue to grow. There's around 400,000 welders in the United States right now, but the American Weld Society predicts a shortage of about 400,000 welders by 2024. So the demand for the field is definitely there now, going to continue to be that way. That's caused, again, another shift in thinking from everyone all across the board to all the way back to the employer, because, these people, you've got to treat them with respect. You got to treat them like family. You've got to provide great benefits. You got to make them feel like a part of home when they're there at work, and keep them safe, because these are people that are critical to your operations. And I definitely see that with some of the local companies that I'm involved with on job placement. I hear back from former students that are now involved and hired with those companies and have been there for a couple of years. And I see that job satisfaction that, comes back my way when they talk to me, about how happy they've been with the occupation and with the employers that they're hired on with. So I see it directly. I hear it directly from these people that were once graduates of ours. So that's always a good, warm feeling when you hear back directly from the people that are now involved in that occupation. And I've been around welding for 25 years myself. Always great feedback. I respect the welders and what they can do. It's a skill that's never lost. There's many different directions you can take and go with it. So I'm just glad to be a part of it. And I definitely see that, it's something I love talking to the people that come in and share with them all those experiences that I'm aware of about, why this should be considered as an option.
Well, and it's such a great, kudos to you. Such a great message for your school that you listen to the feedback and you're talking to graduates about their satisfaction on the job. So kudos, 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 because too many education providers never seek the input of their graduates. I want to switch for a second to a question from Vera, one of our participants, who wants to know what you've seen people doing to remove the stigma. I think we would all agree that most blue collar jobs carry some stigma. It came up earlier in the discussion. People thought you should go right from high school to four-year college. And many people making a career change don't think about blue collar. So can I do a jump ball to all three of you saying either what are you doing or what have you seen done to really help remove that stigma?
I'll take the first bite. I know that speaking with my members and seeing how they interact with their students and the feedback that we receive from them, the success on to Ron's point he made earlier about enhancing safety and promoting mentorship, the programs that are most successful that our members use, and most of them are those that are holistic and accompany the student through the process. Not just, okay, I want to become a truck driver. Okay, take this training course and boom, here's your license. It's not that. It's a process. It's a process of learning how to safely operate a big piece of equipment, telling them, informing them of the contours of the industry, what the opportunities are and the pitfalls, but also to talk about, you're coming into a field that is in demand. We're short 80,000 truck drivers. and it's only going to get worse if no changes are made. It's going to grow to about 160,000 in about 5 years. Our economy can't sustain that. So our members are the most successful in accompanying those folks through their process of training, getting into a job, and staying in the industry. That's the most important thing. It's not just taking a job, but staying in and growing in it, and spreading the gospel of the industry of saying, look, here's an opportunity. If you're looking for a career change, if you're a young person, if you're mid-career, and you want to do something different with your life, you're not going back. You're advancing in your own way. And I think that's a successful thing I've seen from my members. And then that's the messaging we use in telling our story of, you don't have to go to college to become a winner. Oftentimes our folks come out of training programs with no debt and making six-figure salaries. So I think that's a pretty good deal. But it's not for everybody.
Oh, that's great.
College is not for everybody either.
The student loan debt definitely is not.
Oh.
But I'm really glad you asked the question in the chat, because I think it's something we really have to grapple. You have about 10% of young people who are not connected to school or work are unemployed. Right. So that's a significant number. That unemployment rate for those young people 16 to 24 is almost twice that of the regular of the unemployment rate for the overall population. So you have to pay attention to young people. And I would say, like, it's three things. Some of it is what Sal hit on. I think you need to think about partnerships with trusted local intermediaries in your community who serve young people, who understand young people's needs, who understand their perspectives and how to talk to them and how to introduce new ideas and new ways of learning to them. So I think partnership is key. I would also say exposure is really important too. I think young people are told to go to college. It's like, you got to go to college. I don't care what you do, but you better go to college and get a 4-year degree. And some of it is giving the exposure both to the young people and to their parents, right? Coming from Michigan, where I live, where young people, well, I'm not so young, but people in my generation whose parents, worked, in the plants, their parents were like, I'm working here, so you don't necessarily have to go to college. And so you have to shift mindsets of entire families to make it attractive for them so they can see and understand the potential. And then I would say from a programmatic aspect, and this is work that we've seen at JFF, is really around introducing career and technical education, partnerships, and also youth apprenticeships. I think there is a space in the registered apprenticeship world for young people. And it's around, how do you build an apprenticeship or a work-based learning experience for young people where they can actually work on the job, see what a plant looks like, get paid, right, for training, because a lot of young people are also carrying a financial responsibility in their families. And if they can see at a young age that they can graduate from high school with a certificate, right, with a credential, and they've gotten paid, and they'll get paid more in the long term when they go into that job, I think you have to look at that as another option that's out there in terms of how do you get people when they're young, get young people into and interested in the vast array of occupations that exist. My husband is a IBEW electrician. He didn't come into the trades until he was in his 40s. Wow. And his parents, he often says, I wish my parents would have told me I could have made money with my hands. If he would have known that before, he would have gotten into the trades when he was in his 20s, not when he was in his 40s. As an older person, he's like, oh my God, what am I doing? But it's that introduction, right? And letting young people know you can have a good career, you can work with your hands, you can have a dignified employment experience, but it's that exposure piece. And I think without that, the stigma is just going to continue, because some of it's based on experience too. So you have to kind of show an alternative reality to people who may have had a bad run in the trades, or who have a bad experience working in this industry. So I think all of that is really important.
Yeah, no, look, I don't understand it. We all buy our kids Legos and then all, to encourage them to do things and create things. And then when it comes to jobs, we forget about that. Ron, how about you? What are you doing to kind of dispel the dark, dirty, dangerous myths of welding?
Yeah, so it all really goes back a few decades. The 80s and 90s were pretty harsh on the vocational training facilities because there was such a promotion of the 4-year college plan, right? And that was a huge dip that all of that caused in vocational training involvement that is still setting us back today for a lack of people involved in the skilled trades. But there's been a slight comeback, but I know in the last 16 years, 4-year college enrollment has went up 28%. So definitely facts that are out there, and there needs to be definitely a shift in the understanding of what the skilled trades can provide for families and their future. The average pay, at least here in Louisiana, I know for a welder is $64,000. It's not too shabby. Our actual first graduate of here several years ago was a former chef and wasn't satisfied with that career, wasn't satisfied with the pay, the long working hours, and he came back here, enrolled in our program in a few short months. He graduated, went through a local union and was hired in a pipeline job in California and busted out his first year with $100,000 job. So, it's some misconceptions out there about the skilled trades. Definitely, needs to be a lot of promotion from everyone involved. I mean, from parents to educators, the government, employers, everyone needs to be involved in getting that message out. And it's a new message, where the old message is not there anymore. I mean, this is a wide open opportunity in any of the skilled trades like trucking and plumbers and welders and a whole new respect for those positions. And I see it when I talk to parents. Some of them come in here and I literally hear directly from them about how they've rethought the idea of the 4-year college plan, and that their child was a more hands-on person, very much more involved that way in things, and got more satisfaction through that type of work. And so there's definitely something that all of us need to drive home this new message about great pay, rewarding, and all the skilled trades are very important and crucial to the whole nation.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's not an either or anymore, right? You can go into these professions and your employer can help you pay for your post-secondary education. I know in both of your industries, construction and commercial driving, lots of employer benefit programs for continuing education. But still, I want to go back to you for a second, because I think you got all of our attention when you said you're looking for diversity in your industry. I mean, whether it's women or people of color, people, who have a record, who are coming back, those second chance folks. Tell me what you're doing to get the word out about that. How are you actually helping your members do the recruitment for those kinds of populations?
My members have been doing it for a while. They've been doing it before it was fashionable. They work with their local workforce boards, the churches, community groups, to help get people into jobs. And oftentimes, if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, look, I have a record," or "I'm on my last dime here and I can't afford your training program, but I really want to get into this industry," they will work with you. They will work with that person to get them into the training program, to get them their permits, to get them their license, and to place them into a job. And what has helped our members succeed is being front-facing, working with all kinds of community groups, and finding them the funding and the opportunity to get behind the wheel and into a great industry. We're happy to see more money for workforce development programs. We're happy to see more funding for registered apprenticeship programs. But frankly, from CVTA's perspective, we don't think that people should be discriminated for using certain schools because they're run by, they're a private entity. And we're really focusing on making sure that those workforce dollars and aid gets directly to the student and the individual so that they can use it for their training. And that move is still moving. But my members have been really on the forefront of and telling our story, we had I could share it with you later, of a member of mine in Philadelphia who has an innovative program that targets folks in North Philadelphia, a neighborhood that is, that people are looking for work, and it's successful. So that's when we take that very seriously.
Philly's my
We
hometown.
want everybody
You can
to
tell by
succeed.
the accent.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sorry. Giants fan. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's the end of that conversation. Ron, I want to go back to you for a second, because anybody who's with us today on this webinar knows that whether you're a 4-year college, non-elite, whether you're a 2-year college, whether you're a training program, COVID has presented a real problem with keeping your enrollment up. How have you done, especially hands-on kinds of training like yours? How have you done during the pandemic? And more importantly, how are you doing now as we get to the tail end of it to encourage people to come back for in-person hands-on training?
Right. And so good point. Welding, of course, cannot be taught remotely. It's got to be a hands-on process, and without getting in a booth and making sparks, that training can occur. So yeah, we have to be careful. We've implemented obvious safety changes that most companies have to make things move forward and keep that safety in consideration. This thing seems to be longer lasting than everybody thought, and we're definitely still having to take precautions, distancing. Of course, in the booth, we've got instructors that are in close proximity when they're in there with the student, but hoods are down. All students have given the option of wearing a mask in conjunction with that hood. But other cleaning safety protocols are put into place. But it's a challenge, and it's something that we just have to be very, very careful with all those safety protocols that our instructors are using and following, and students are using and following. But there has been a decrease in enrollment since 2020. Obviously, I think that's kind of across the board when it comes to training institutions. So it is a challenge that continues to go on, but it's something that there's just safety measures that have to be in place to make everybody feel comfortable. And thank goodness we've had, it's been successful. We've had no incidents that's really caused any disruption. So I think we're on the right track. And hopefully that will continue to go and move along that way and make people feel comfortable with this type of training.
Well, thank you for that, because I think everybody is worried about how do we get those almost 3 million people that are still on the sidelines from February of 20 back into the workforce. And I think you said a word that's really important: safety, safety, safety. Yep. Tameshia, Lauren, one of our participants, put a question in the Q&A that really springs from your bringing up partnerships, and wondered if you would start the conversation about, what have you seen that's really effective in terms of partnerships? Because I think we would all agree partnerships are critical, but they're hard. They're hard work. So love to hear what you've seen.
Yeah, I think there are I mean, there's a lot of different organizations you can name, both nationally and in local communities that do that well. But I think there's just certain characteristics I think you need to look for as you're thinking about partnerships with youth serving organizations. So one I would say is that they have a really strong track record with attracting young people to their programs, that they have a really strong both youth development understanding and understanding like how young people's brains work and also being trauma informed, particularly in this particular time, and how they do their approaches. So I would say that's something else to look for. And I would also say that they have a strong kind of track record with working with employers and training programs in those communities. So I would say those are some characteristics to look for. In terms of some good ones that we've worked with, and this is where I'm going to lean on. I've been at JFF for 9 months and I can't quote the vast number of partnerships that we have across the country, but some that have come to mind that have been profiled in some of our publications. One is Here to Here. There's some good ones in California. I can get back with you and kind of point you to some specific resources if you want to reach out to me separately and connect you with our team that works on young adult employment, that they can help to connect you with the network that we have of youth serving organizations that may be available in your community.
And by the way, that's a great segue to say all of the panelists have agreed their personal emails or their contact information is in the chat. So please feel free to reach out to anybody after this. An hour goes pretty quickly. But I do want to get this partnership word. And by the way, Chris, get you off the sidelines as well, because you rely on partnerships. So do you have some advice on these factors? And then I want Sil, you and Ron to say the same thing about, what you see as an effective partnership.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jane. I mean, I would say, there's a couple of different ways I could answer this, and I'll try to just be very, very succinct. One is, I think it was discussed earlier in this panel discussion that there's a tremendous need to expose people to these opportunities earlier on, right? And so I think one of the biggest partnership opportunities is with our educational system. And I can't speak to details nationally, but I can tell you here in Texas, for a long time, what was called CTE programming was ignored or underfunded. And that's starting to change. And I can see it at a number of school districts that we, work with across North Texas, where the response has been really good. Like letting kids, even at the middle school age, start to get into technical programs that range from welding to, it's just some pretty high tech stuff, is sparking interest in these alternative careers. And, to the point that was made earlier as well, is it's helping parents wrap their head around like what it might look like for their student to do something other than the college prep course. And the second thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up, is here at Meritize, we're focused on working with employers too, and getting them involved in this process. Mm-hmm. It was mentioned a couple of times that employers, a lot of them offer benefits to people to help get trained. But what we're finding is that employers are struggling with the right way to do that. And the way I characterize it is that employers, when they have someone who works for them who is proven to be, someone that they want to invest in, like they're finding ways to invest and help them get better skills. Where employers have a hard time is investing in an unknown quantity, right? And so these are all the folks who need to take the entry-level jobs. And so we're working with employers to figure out ways that we can help kind of create a bridge for that and help employers participate on a de-risk basis. So those are the two areas that I think are hyper important. There's lots of other things that we could focus on as well.
Yeah. Great. I also want to go back and add one other thing in terms of like that exposure piece for adult learners, because I misheard the question and I typed in the answer, but I would also add, look at pre-apprenticeship programs or exposure programs that are targeted towards specific populations. So one that comes to mind in the trades is Chicago Women in the Trades. They're a partner of ours on our DEI Center. And though they are based in Chicago, they also hold a National Center for Women's Equity in Employment and Apprenticeship. I may have just butchered it, but basically it's a network of women in trade organizations that provide pre-apprenticeship exposure, so that it's that opportunity for women or people of color, depends on how these pre-apprenticeship programs are structured, to see the job, to understand what is entailed in the job. How does it feel to wear boots? What does it feel like to hold the equipment? And it also helps kind of equip people to understand the culture, right? Because I think that's the one piece of diversity that we don't often talk about. We talk about getting diverse people in, but we also have to prepare people and also move the industries to be more inclusive in their practices, so that they are welcoming places for diverse people to come into and want to stay. And that's another good thing about pre-apprenticeship programs, is they provide that mentorship, right? And support and network for people to kind of understand what they're coming into when they enter into these types of occupations.
Very good point. So we were going to talk to you a little bit about what you see as the partnership piece.
Sure. All good things said about attracting, finding the right people and encountering them and accompanying them. The other important, with a focus on younger people, one thing that I think is going to help us is realizing the technological advances that are going to be happening within the commercial driving space. You're hearing a lot about AV. We do not see this as the end of truck drivers. My father seems to think that that it is, but you know, he's been around a little too long. He needs to retire. Anyway, that's not going to happen, because you're going to need competent, safe, licensed people in that cab as soon as, if it goes fully AV. And that's one thing that we do with our students, particularly younger ones, to show, hey, you get your CDL today. In 20 or 30 years, when the technology catches up, your experience only gets better, and employers will pay you more for it. So that's one good thing that we see. But more to the point of working with schools and getting in front of policymakers here in Washington, I think there are a lot of good people on both sides of the aisle who see the problem, but don't quite understand the contours because they don't hear from they hear from folks like us who are subject matter experts. I think what's best is to get your workers, get your students talking to policymakers about why we need these investments in workforce, how a CDL license or becoming a welder has changed their life for the better, and why we need good policies to make sure that we reduce barriers and get people into good paying jobs. So that's one way I can see how partnerships working.
So I want to remotely underline something you said, that AV, automated vehicles, are not going to put truck driving jobs out for the foreseeable future. Because
Correct.
I think, going back to what Tameshia was saying earlier, kids listen to their parents,
Right.
and parents think they're really smart, saying these are going to be automated, don't go into that area. For the foreseeable future, there are going to be quality jobs in commercial driving. Is that right?
Correct. And I think what we and other organizations are doing are making sure that the rules are written and the procedures are written with a strong emphasis on safety, that you will need somebody, a person for that, particularly that last mile destination. So, yeah.
So I really like where the conversation went when it went to adults. So let's talk about adults for a second, because obviously we have the problem of kids and convincing their parents to go into blue collar jobs. I don't want to diminish that. That's a real problem. But now we have lots of adults who have stepped out, people who left industries like retail, who want to get out of hourly wage jobs like restaurants, and they want to think about coming in to a career path in welding or in commercial driving. What advice, and then Tameshia, I'm going to ask you to take this home after we hear what the two gentlemen have to say. But what are you looking for from an adult career changer? What do I have to have in order to be considered for a welding school as a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old or as a commercial driver? And Ron, I'll start with you. I'm 40 and I want to think about going into welding. What skills do I need for you to consider me?
Sure, and thank you for the question. Basically, we could take those people and almost 100% of those, we could put them in welder training with no requirements whatsoever. I mean, I always ask people when I'm talking with them, we can provide the training. The one thing we can't provide is the want to. We need those people that are coming in with the desire to learn it, to improve their lives. And if they bring that, then everything else we can put in place. We'll work with them from beginning to end, all the way up to job placement and follow through afterwards to make sure they're happy with their choice. But the one thing we can't bring is the want to. As long as people want it, we got it here, everything that they're looking for to make that training happen. And we'll make sure that they get a good paying job. We'll make sure that they're happy with their choice. And just a small amount of training time is really all it takes to make a big life change happen, and with a significant increase in quality of life and pay factor. So just the desire. And I do, it's a good point though, because I actually do get a pretty good large percentage of those type of people that I talk to on a regular basis. I see plenty of those that are coming in for that particular type of change in life, and very glad to get to talk to them about what welding is and what it entails and what type of training that we can provide and make that great life change happen for them. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it play out, and I know it's real.
And about how long does it take for the average person? I know there's probably some differences to get their American Welding Society, AWS certification. About how long does it take?
Correct. The average length of time is anywhere from 6 to 8 months.
Great. Okay. That's something that a lot of working adults could see as reasonable. Still the same question.
Sure. For us, we like to say we're a job fair on wheels. Our members work with folks who want a career change, who want to get into this industry. Typically, our programs are about 7 to 8 weeks. It's pretty intense, but you will come out learning how to be a safe operator of a truck or a bus or large vehicle. And I think, as Ron said, our members will work with people who have no experience in commercial driving, never worked any kind of manual labor before, maybe they just want a career change. Our members will do work with students from all walks of life and all skill sets to make sure that they are trained, that they are competent, that they are confident in the work that they do, and also in a safe way as well. So we try to, as I said earlier, we position ourselves as not just as a job, but opening up doors to other opportunities. And we're here to accompany these good people on their journey.
That's great. So Tameshia, take us home on this question. I mean, what do not only working adults, but particularly the working poor who can't afford to take even 8 weeks without a salary, or 6 months without a salary, what should they consider if they really want to go after this population?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, this is not an innovative model, but I'll plug it again, and that is a registered apprenticeship, because it is a paid training program. I think that is something that, particularly in this economy, cannot be ignored, is that, for someone to go 6 to 8 months or 7 to 8 weeks without a paycheck is a lift, right? And so if as we're thinking about training opportunities, coupling that with some type of support, stipend, income guarantee even, I think is something that we need to talk about and consider if we're really wanting to transition adults who have family responsibilities or just regular old bills that they have to pay, to be able to successfully move into these types of training. So I will always plug registered apprenticeships, not just because we have the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning, but because I've seen the power that it has in helping people retool their lives with training and income attached. But I do think it's part of a broader policy conversation around what would a retooled unemployment insurance program look like that is more closely tied and connected to job training. I think we have to talk about the supports that people need along the path to training in order to help them kind of really realize the opportunities that are out there.
Oh, absolutely. Chris, I'm going to give you the last word on this one, and then we'll close out.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So, I mean, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who participated both on the panel and in the audience again. Sil and Ron, practitioners who understand this at a very deep level. You're in the trenches every day, and we're really appreciative of what you do and taking the time to talk today. To Tameshia and Jane, you and your organizations thinking about this, from a policy perspective and how to generate the conversation and the interest in this. We can't thank you enough for what you do as well. I think the discussion was fantastic. I simply think that, we've gotten to a point, and I hope the pandemic has maybe there's some good that comes out of it long term, which is it helps adjust the way we think about things. I do think that we had gotten to a point where we were thinking about education way too linearly. And again, I go back to the point that technology is progressing at a pace where I think most of the folks who are entering the workforce today will be required to kind of retrain themselves a number of times over the course of their career. And that could be switching lanes. It could be just staying on the lane you're in. I have 3 teenage boys. So, a lot of what we're talking about is stuff that I've been working through with them. And,